Fide.email, you don't need to compromise faith to participate in the modern world. Instead of pushing ads and invasive practices that conflict with Catholic values, we built Fide to reclaim technology for Christendom. When you use Fide.email, you declare your commitment to technology that defends Christian tradition. Join Fide.email today and use technology to advance Christendom.
There's a malicious bit of fake news going out in the broader Catholic media, and we're now going to use the word Catholic with quotes around it, because there are people just blatantly making news up and exploiting a Catholic audience for clicks. And I say making things up. They are literally fabricating news. This has happened multiple times. First, if you want a spicier take on this, last night the Avoiding Babylon YouTube channel did a broadcast on people making up fake AI Catholic videos to do things like invent things Pope Leo XIV is saying. Evil things like in Africa, you're aware that the church in Africa is being persecuted by the followers of the Crescent Moon religion and its false prophet. A particularly virulent organization there is going after them and doing the most unspeakable evil things. There's a video out there of Leo XIV made by AI endorsing that organization. It's gotten 1 million views on YouTube. And people in the comments believe he said this stuff. It's nuts. You don't have to like Leo XIV to think that, to know that's fake. If most people who don't like Pope Francis would not have said, oh yeah, that's real, if Pope Francis's video had been pushed to the public, made by AI, have him saying that. Most people, their brains work well enough to know that's not true. But it got 1 million views and people are watching it because at the end of the day, a lot of people have a hard time differentiating reality from fiction. Let me give you an example of this. We're not talking about that one. You may have heard that Cardinal Robert Sarah got appointed to be some special envoy by Pope Leo XIV to Africa. It's not real. It's fake news. It didn't happen. And yet, for some reason, the YouTube channel promoting this, which is a fake AI YouTube channel, the person behind it thinks it's okay to just make things up. So I'm going to show you now just a clip from this video, and I'll show you how you can tell it's AI. Here we go.
Defense of orthodoxy. The man who quietly but unmistakably disagreed with Pope Francis on everything from liturgical reform to gender ideology.
Want to know how you can tell that's AI? It's not hard. The syntax and the delivery of that speech was perfect. It was flawless. It was fake. These AI channels use audio voiceover with perfect diction and perfect delivery. It's fake. There's a ton of these channels popping up right now. There's one right now with some very inflammatory titles using an AI voiceover with a British accent. Actually, one of the more common AI voices. That's why I was shocked people fell for it. And the channel was starting to grow with some very spicy, hardline, trad-sounding stuff. In the comments on that channel, different than this one, people are giving the person a hard time because they recognize it as AI. And the person behind the channel finally started responding. And they said, well, we don't make enough money off this channel yet, so when we do, we'll hire actual voice actors to do the work for us. And here's where they need to remember. YouTube is at least partially about the personality of the person who is on the channel. That's how it works. There are people who watch this channel have said in my comments, they like what I do, but they don't like me, so they're not watching. And you know what? That's fine. I get it completely. YouTube is about, at least in part, the person who is doing the work, whether they're on camera or doing a voiceover. But this video here and that other channel and a whole bunch of others popping up are fake news promoting AI channels. And I can show you another way that I know that this is fake news AI nonsense. But first, I'm not the only one who knows it was fake news. Maybe you don't trust me on this. Totally fair. I get it. Michael Hitchborn posted this. There is a report going around that Pope Leo appointed Cardinal Sarah as the special papal envoy. Do not believe it. It is fake news based on an anonymous AI-generated YouTube video. He knows it's fake news as well. But if you really want better proof of this, let's go to a couple of places. First and foremost, we go to the Vatican's bulletin. This is the Vatican news bulletin website of the Vatican. Yesterday was when the news went out, but let's go back a day. 18th of May, 2025. Here's what the Holy Father did. He did a Eucharistic celebration for the beginning of the Petrine ministry of the Bishop of Rome. Everybody talked about that. Then he had audiences, and then he had the Regina Caeli prayer, which is, by the way, where he said Pope Francis is praying for us from heaven. That's where the informal quasi-canonization happened, not a real canonization. For those who were wondering where I got that from in my video yesterday, that's where it happened. That was the 18th. 19th of May, yesterday. Let's see, Holy See Press Office Ecumenical. That was when he had it was about the audience with J.D. Vance. And then he had an audience with representative of other churches, ecclesial communities, and other religions. And they had more audiences. And then he had resignations and appointments. Let's go there. Oh, look. Appointment of the head of the office and the head of Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. Not Cardinal Sarah. Appointment of special envoy, maybe that's him, to the concluding celebrations of the 350th anniversary of the apparitions of the Sacred Heart of St. Margarita Maria Alacoque. Nope, that's not Cardinal Sarah. An appointment of the Grand Chancellor of the Pontifical John Paul II Theological Institute for Marriage and Family Sciences, which we will talk about here shortly. And then more about that. And we'll go there in a moment. But nothing about Cardinal Sarah. And this story went viral because of a fake AI channel. Because somebody thought that they could just make news up to get Catholics. Because for whatever reason, a lot of people can't tell when something is AI. Whether it's an AI-generated image. I've seen people fall for some blatantly obvious AI-generated pictures. Things that were clearly not real. But in this case, because it's just a perfectly delivered voiceover, so perfect that it's practically unnatural, people fell for it. They did. And I can understand it. Not everybody's good at spotting AI. I'm not castigating you for falling for it if you did. The news is not real. It's not news. It was fake. There's a real scourge now happening on YouTube to the point where YouTube is trying to figure out how to crack down on it, and it is AI channels. Because they, on the one hand, find that there could be valid uses for AI channels. But on the other, they know it's a problem, including the spreading of fake news. And I have a contact in YouTube, and I'm deciding whether or not I should contact YouTube directly, my contact there, and say, hey, look, you've got this problem where they're making up literally fake news, that they're using this platform to spread misinformation. And then send them channel links. But I don't know if I should do that or not. Let me know in the comments if you think I should. I'll bet I'll get people on both sides of this. But to be clear, Cardinal Robert Sarah has not been appointed as some special envoy by Pope Leo XIV to Africa. It has not happened. In that video, if you watch that fake AI video more, they actually admit that you will not see a press release, a bulletin, or official announcement of it. This is essentially a secret agreement, which means the source is trust me, bro. That's what it means. They want you to take it without any sources. This is why I show you news articles and quote them directly, sometimes too much, to show you that this is not something I am making up, that this is actually out there. This is a problem. A very real problem. And it tags as on a side note, I also don't appreciate the influx of channels using AI thumbnails. Yeah, I've debated using AI to make thumbnails before. We've used it a little bit, not to like generate a thumbnail, but some of the side imagery or something. But in general, yeah, the AI imagery is generally soulless. There's something a lot of times it can look real about those images, but the giveaways are just something unnatural about it, in the same way of that totally perfect delivery, as I described it, in those other things. Yeah, but pretty much everyone's saying I should report it. I'll maybe send a contact to my, what they call program partner manager or whatever. Somebody I haven't spoken to in like 7 months or something. But yes. Harmony says, not my interest to speak with YouTube. Yeah. I can understand why people would say that, but KW said they stopped watching Ryan Hall's Weather Channel because of the AI bot. It's a little weird. I know what you mean. I was watching that. Anthony of Avoiding Babylon says, I think they're rushing us towards digital ID. That's another subject, but yeah, I think you're right. Bellator says, while AI has a latent potential to generate false information, an even more troubling problem lies in the deliberate misuse of AI for manipulation. This can occur when individuals or organizations, and I think he continues it later. I almost suspect that this person is trying, I would want to be charitable and assume that they're trying to push the Vatican, trying to meme it to making it real. Let's see. Maddie says, an interesting listen to a YT site called Pope Leo XIV Sermons with his exact voice. I was upset as it had no sources or dates. Yes, there are people out there inventing sermons of the Holy Father and then putting them up. Just inventing them. Welcome to the propaganda war. Taking a very dark turn. Quotes from the Vatican's AI. Yeah, I mean, look, I can just tell you right now, the AI channels are putting forward a false personality, even if they are coming up with normal commentary and using just an AI voice to do it instead of their own. It's still deceptive. And then there is the entire problem of just literally making it up as you go along. The other place you can tell, by the way, that this is fake news, that Cardinal Sarah didn't get this post. There's Vatican News website. It's the BBC of the Vatican, run by the Vatican. Look at the front page stories from yesterday. He's doing an ecumenical dialogue session. We will talk about that. It's not good. Pope Leo meets with Vice President. Pope Leo meets with the President of Colombia. Cardinal Parolin said nice things about him. Some stuff, other things going on. Cardinal Pizzaballa. Well, look, stuff about the Regina Caeli and the inauguration mass, but not anything with like one of the highest profile cardinals and most beloved cardinals in the Catholic Church, allegedly receiving a special post of an envoy that would have absolutely made headlines. Don't fall for this stuff. It's deceptive. And I never tell people, "Ooh, you shouldn't watch this channel or that channel." There are a lot of people who talk Catholic stuff that I don't care for. I don't care one way or the other if you watch them. It's not a secret that I don't particularly care for Michael Lofton. If you watch Michael Lofton's work, okay, whatever, don't care. That's your prerogative. I'm not going to think less of anybody or chastise anybody or whatever. Watch whomever you want. But if you are watching this AI stuff, you're being manipulated and it's deceptive, and I do highly recommend you stop watching them. It's a line that got crossed. And it's now a scourge in the Catholic world. You're seeing this stuff being presented all over Facebook and social media. And people are saying, oh, it's real, it's true. It's bad news, folks. Real bad news. Enough of that. Taylor Marshall reported on this yesterday. I'm going to go over it myself, too. We had I told people, if you want to idea the direction things will go in this papacy, you will see it through the appointments. And we actually got a good, an improvement, an upgrade of an appointment yesterday. The head of Pope Francis made the head of the John Paul II Institute some years ago, a cardinal who rejects the church's teaching essentially on activity suited to the married state, to the sacrifice of Moloch, all these non-negotiable issues that you can't really talk about openly on this platform because they get really sensitive to it because this is a very secular left-wing place. But it was one of those things that made it unequivocal and easy for people to resist Francis. And so when you get kind of the questionable things that are starting to happen with Leo, it gets a little harder. It reminds me of how things were before Francis, honestly, where you had to be more measured and everything else. That life was easy for Francis when it comes to this stuff. But here we go from Info Vaticana. The headline, controversial Paglia, the first casualty of the changes under Leo XIV. Cardinal Reina will lead the John Paul II Institute on the Family. Now, this is on Info Vaticana, which is a really awful website in terms of how many pop-up ads they have. It makes it hard to actually go over news articles. So I'm just going to actually put back on screen for you the headline there, which didn't translate well anyway. I'm just going to go over the article here and give you some reactions that I saw to this. This is an improvement, unequivocally an improvement. This would be, in fact, this is such an improvement. This is like low-hanging fruit improvement. It will be a little like getting rid of Cardinal Fernandez from the Dicaster for the Doctrine of the Faith and putting almost anybody else there. It would be an improvement. Here's the details. Quote, Pope Leo XIV has appointed Cardinal Baldassare Reina as the new Grand Chancellor of the Pontifical John Paul II Theological Institute for Marriage and Family Studies, Holy See Press Office reported today. He is currently His Holiness's Vicar General for the Diocese of Rome and Grand Chancellor of the Pontifical Lateran University. He replaces Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, who was appointed by Pope Francis in 2016 and whose tenure was marked by various controversies related to the Institute's academic and doctrinal orientation. During Paglia's tenure, the John Paul II Institute underwent a profound structural and curricular reform that led to the dismissal of several prominent professors, including Monsignor Livio Molina and the philosopher Jose Noriega, and the introduction of a more sociological academic approach. Sociology is one of the most evil forms of social science, less focused on traditional moral theology. These changes provoked a strong reaction from sectors of the Catholic world, which denounced a break with the doctrinal legacy of St. John Paul II. Paglia also drew criticism for his public interventions on matters of bioethics, the sacrifice of Moloch of the elderly, and the recognition of James Martin's parody of holy matrimony, as well as for controversial aesthetic choices, such as the commissioning of a mutual featuring things meant to tantalize those with James Martin's tastes, figures in Terni Cathedral. His positions were seen by many as a departure from the Church's traditional moral teachings. The change in the Institute's Grand Chancellery is interpreted as a sign of the new direction set by Leo XIV, with a desire to restore the institution's original identity. The Holy See has not announced whether Archbishop Paglia will assume new duties. So there you have it. It's an upgrade. We get a little bit more on this. Just start going down the sources here. We go Catholic Arena. Said it was Cardinal Reina was picked for the JP2 Institute of Marriage and Family, was previously accused by a former seminarian of forcing him to undergo, essentially, go to a shrink meant to cure him of his James Martin inclinations. This was reacted to by people going, is this a bad thing? How is this a bad thing? And we go here to Mr. Patrick Coffin, who posted on X. Let's be clear, the so-called accusation is nothing more than a seminary superior encouraging a troubled young man to seek help in overcoming an objectively disordered inclination, something incompatible with the priestly vocation. It's not abuse, it's pastoral responsibility. I could not have said it better myself, hence why I just quoted Patrick Coffin on it. But yeah, there's a very James Martin-esque mural in his cathedral, and as Father V said, removing him, who commissioned an artist to paint it, is a significant bellwether. And what is it a bellwether of? I would suggest it's a bellwether of going more towards moderate things. Now, as for the new guy, which is a very sloppy way of describing a cardinal, but CatholicSat has this to say. It says, one of the battles from the last pontificate that few talk about was Pope Francis's efforts to remove James Martin types from Italian seminaries, which he viewed as a major problem, but one where he received significant pushback from a bloc in the Italian Bishops' Conference. In the conference, Reina, his new man, so you now have a man there who could help clean up the seminaries. That is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm happy to see that's happening. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses. The Holy Father had a meeting with leaders of other religions, and where he went all in on synodality and ecumenical dialogue. Before Vatican II, the Church pretty much condemned ecumenical dialogue unless it was with the purpose of correcting the errors of others and bringing them to Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. That was the purpose of ecumenical dialogue. We won't count things with Eastern Orthodox and maybe even the most Catholic Protestant groups as ecumenical dialogue, because the closer they are to Catholicism, the less ecumenical really is. It's more like trying to bring them home, right? But it's kind of the whole point of all the ecumenical dialogue was to bring people home. But after Vatican II, it took a different turn. Best expressed, I think, by Bishop Robert Barron. When asked by Ben Shapiro if Shapiro needed to become Catholic, Bishop Robert Barron hemmed and hawed about it and said, Jesus is the privileged path to salvation. a thing you can see found in some of the documents of Vatican II, not explicitly in that kind of language, but you can see where you get that from. Here's his meeting with the English translation of his ecumenical meeting yesterday, which you saw, by the way, in that Vatican bulletin that I started this with. Dear brothers and sisters, great joy, I extend my cordial greetings to all of you, representatives of other churches, that's a problem to begin with, and ecclesial communities, as well as of other religions, who participated in the inaugural celebration of my ministry as Bishop of Rome and successor of Peter. I express fraternal affection to His All Holiness Bartholomew, His Beatitude Theophilos III, and His Holiness Mar Awa III. Those are all going to be Orthodox groups. Again, different category of issue there. And to each of you, I am deeply grateful for your presence and prayers, which are a great comfort and encouragement. One of the strong emphases of Pope Francis's pontificate was that of universal fraternity. In this regard, the Holy Spirit really urged him to advance with great strides the initiatives already undertaken by previous pontiffs, especially since St. John the 23rd. The Pope of Fratelli Tutti promoted both the ecumenical path and interreligious dialogue. He did so above all by cultivating interpersonal relations in such a way that without taking anything away from ecclesial bonds, the human trait of the encounter was always valued. May God help us to treasure his witness. My election has taken place during the year of the 1700th anniversary of the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea. That council represents a milestone in the formulation of the creed shared by all churches and ecclesial communities. While we are on a journey to reestablishing full communion among all Christians, we recognize that this unity can only be unity in faith. As Bishop of Rome, I consider one of my priorities to be that of seeking the reestablishment of full and visible communion among all those who profess the same faith in God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Indeed, unity has always been a constant concern of mine, as witnessed by the motto I chose for my episcopal ministry, in Iu Unum Unum, an expression of St. Augustine of Hippo that reminds us how we too, although we are many, the one, that is Christ, we are one. What is more, communion is realized to the extent that we meet in the Lord Jesus. The more faithful and obedient we are to him, the more united we are among ourselves. We Christians then are called to pray and work together to reach this goal, step by step, which is and remains the work of the Holy Spirit. Aware, moreover, that synodality and ecumenism are closely linked, I would like to assure you of my intention to continue Pope Francis's commitment to promoting the synodal nature of the Catholic Church and developing new and concrete forms for an ever stronger synodality and ecumenical relations. Our common path can and must also be understood in the broad sense of involving everyone, the spirit of human fraternity that I mentioned above. Now is the time for dialogue and building bridges. I am therefore pleased and grateful for the presence of representatives of other religious traditions who share the search for God and his will, which is always and only the will of love and life for men and women and for all creatures. They witnessed the remarkable efforts made by Pope Francis in favor of interreligious dialogue. Through his words and actions, he opened new avenues of encounter to promote the culture of dialogue as the path, mutual collaboration as the code of conduct, reciprocal understanding as the method and standard. The citation to a document on human fraternity for world peace and living together, Abu Dhabi, which can easily be described as the manual for finding peace through lukewarmness. I thank the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue for the essential role it plays in this patient work of encouraging meetings and concrete exchanges aimed at building relations based on human fraternity. In a special way, I greet our so-called elder brothers and the followers of the Crescent Moon false prophet as brothers and sisters. Because of the Jewish roots of Christianity, all Christians have a special relationship with that religion. The Conciliar Declaration Nostra Aetate emphasizes the greatness of the spiritual heritage shared by Christians and our so-called elder brothers. I say so-called, by the way. That's actually out of respect, a measure of respect for them, because they hate when they get called our elder brothers in the faith. Encouraging mutual knowledge and esteem. Theological dialogue between Christians and they remains ever important and close to my heart. Even in these difficult times marked by conflicts and misunderstandings, it is necessary to continue the momentum of this precious dialogue of ours. Relations between the Catholic Church and the Crescent Moon false prophet have been marked by a growing commitment to dialogue and fraternity, fostered by esteem for these our brothers and sisters who worship God, who is one and living and subsistent, Merciful and almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, who also spoken to humanity. I'm going to pause here. When Pope Francis said this, Bishop Strickland ran him through the mud. He shredded him. Every conservative commentator did the same. It's food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. This approach, based on mutual respect and freedom of conscience, is a solid foundation for building bridges between our communities. To all of you, representatives of other religious traditions, I express my gratitude for your participation in this meeting and for your contribution to peace. In a world wounded by violence and conflict, each of the communities represented here brings its own contribution of wisdom, compassion, and commitment to the good of humanity and the preservation of our common home. I am convinced that if we are in agreement and free from ideological and political conditioning, we can be effective in saying no to war and yes to peace, no to the arms race and yes to disarmament, no to an economy that impoverishes peoples and the earth, and yes to integral development. The witness of our fraternity, which I hope we will be able to show with effective gestures, will certainly contribute to building a more peaceful world, something that all men and women of goodwill desire in their hearts. Dear friends, thank you again for your closeness. Let us ask for God's blessing in our hearts. May his infinite goodness and wisdom help us to live as his children and as brothers and sisters to each other, so that hope may grow in the world. I offer you my heartfelt gratitude. What do you think of that? I ask this because universal human fraternity is not a Catholic concept. The only human fraternity you can get is in Catholicism. It is through the submission to Jesus Christ as the Son of God, as the Messiah, who established a church on the Rock of Peter, who gave his life on the cross, who rose from the dead. There's an old expression that is not in vogue anymore, and that's error has no rights. It was applied to everything from heresy to various pagan alternatives. Universal human fraternity comes from a document called Fratelli Tutti. It was issued in 2019, and it was filled with the phrase multiple times, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And if that's a familiar phrase to you, it should be. It's from the French Revolution. It was the slogan of the leaders of the French Revolution. It's a stonecutter phrase. And when Francis said this stuff, people gave him no quarter. So I ask you, what now? My suspicion has been, and I really desperately want to be wrong about this, is that you are going to see a pivot towards essentially bridging the gap between John Paul II and Pope Francis with this papacy. That's what you're going to see. I'm going to see, probably not anyway, a lot of rigid clericalism stuff. You may get your Latin Mass back to some degree. Your traditional Latin Mass, I don't mean your Latin Mass and that's a Novus Ordo, but actually your preconciliar Mass to some degree back. Will that be enough? Remember, we started this after the AI talk with a good appointment. Low-hanging fruit good appointment, but a good appointment. Praiseworthy. Get the John Paul II Institute on Family back to what it's supposed to be doing, instead of becoming the institutionalized way of embracing evil in the church. But if you go read what the saints said about other ways of trying to know God, they didn't have anything good to say. They wouldn't have recognized that document as Catholic. Pray for Leo XIV. Pray for the Holy Father. James Jansen, thank you for always providing objective and trustworthy information. Oh, this is awkward to talk about because there was a lot yesterday on X and other things. There are people out there now telling people that, you know, there was some sort of secretive meeting of all your Catholic influencers that happened where people's loyalty to Leo was bought or something. Weird stuff. If you want me to talk about it, I'll talk about that in the future. People want to give him a chance. Understandable. I will continue to report things objectively and give you the good news and call it good when it's good. I don't have any doubts that he was validly made Roman Pontiff, that he is the Holy Father. But now we are in a situation that looks much more like under John Paul II and Benedict XVI, when you got a lot of good, but you got also a lot that was really questionable too. What the world needs is a Catholic Church that is bold and will speak the truth of the gospel, even when it's unpopular. And the gospel is unpopular. The easiest thing in the world to do as a Catholic is to greet your Protestant neighbor every day, not challenge them to become Catholic, is to meet the people who follow completely foreign ideas about Jesus, who think Jesus wasn't even God or whatever, who are pagan. And because they're nice people, take care of their yard, maybe go to your homeowner association meetings or whatever. You see them at the grocery store. They're very pleasant people, the kind of people you'd be totally fine with keeping an eye on your house while you're on vacation, and never challenging them to come to know our Lord. And it is the biggest temptation in the world today. From that error, every other one springs. It's lukewarmness. I pray that that's not what he's getting at in that document. I saw one critique of those of us who are taking a wait-and-see approach, asking, will you getting your Latin Mass back be enough to keep you silent on all these issues? I'm going to ask that of you. Something to think about. This isn't the last thing we're going to hear like this, nor is it the last good news we're going to get. I expect much more good news. I expect some really good appointments. I fully expect you're going to see things like possibly Bishop Schneider stop being an auxiliary bishop. He's an assistant bishop. He's not even an ordinary. I expect he'll be made an ordinary somewhere, which will free him to do more. Or he'll be given a job in the Roman Curia. I expect you'll see a lot of good things. But you can't ignore these either. That's why you need to pray for the Holy Father. But do I think he's not valid? No. He is very much dedicated to Vatican II. He said as much repeatedly, so believe him. Out of respect for him and the office he holds, believe him when he says he is dedicated to ecumenical dialogue, to synodality, and Pope Francis's vision of synodality, whatever that means. He gets to define what that means, and to the council and everything that comes with it. Joseph New says, regarding AI YouTube channels, Michael Matt of the Remnant quoted atheist Thomas Sowell commentary on Pope Leo as if it was real, but the YouTube channel Sowell Today description says it uses AI content. Do you see how this is a problem? To go back to where we started. Very big problem. Very good people. Many of you in this audience probably believed what you saw about Cardinal Sarah was real. It wasn't. If Michael Matt can fall for it, then don't feel too bad about yourself. He's smarter than I am, and he's smarter than a lot of us. He's been in this game a long time. He's been doing this media recognize and resist thing, loyal resistance to the Holy Father thing for a very long time. And even if he believes some of this stuff, then he shows you how dangerous this stuff is. It's why you need to demand that your Catholic content creators, whether they're a blogger or a YouTuber, actually tell you where they got the information from. Don't take, if they say, oh, he was appointed to this position, but you will see no press release. You'll see no news bulletin about this. If somebody tells you that, and they don't tell you that I have a source in Rome who told me X, right? Because there are some outlets that have a very good track record. Rorate Caeli, Michael Matt have sources in Rome. Who LifeSite does, who they break news from their sources in Rome, and it ends up being true. But there are people who are just willing to make things up. Learn to identify AI when you hear it. The main reason I could tell that was AI is because I've seen YouTube shorts using that voiceover. Harmony says, it doesn't even matter what I think about Pope Leo. I'm going to keep praying for him. I don't have to understand God's plan. My job is to pray. Keep praying for him. Napoleon Solo says, AI generation is described in a channel description. It's supposed to be, but there are a lot of channels that don't do that. And most people never read a YouTube channel's description. They can't even find, a lot of times, the description box. Like I do a Patreon pitch a few times a week. You want to support the work I do here? consider joining through that join button below, or subscribe to our Patreon or other things that viewers of the channel asked for in the description box below. And people can't find the description boxes. Right? And I don't blame them for it. I'm not exactly the most tech savvy person. It's a real problem. I do hope YouTube does crack down on this stuff, because there are people literally making up fake news now about the Holy Father, literally inventing speeches he gave that are inflammatory, saying that evil organizations in Africa that are destroying Christians are somehow good, saying he's appointed people. It would be great if he appointed Cardinal Sarah to something. It would be. Cardinal Sarah's going to turn 80 in like 3 weeks, so he's probably not getting appointed to anything. The one thing that didn't really make a lot of news when people were celebrating Cardinal Paglia being removed and being replaced by Cardinal Reina is that Cardinal Paglia is 80. In the church, a priest retires at the age of 70 unless he's in good health and his bishop says, okay, you can stay on. It's up to the bishop entirely. When a bishop, including cardinals, hits 75, they submit their letter of resignation to Rome. And if the Holy Father determines that decides that it's time for them to step down from being an ordinary running a diocese, that's how it works. And the same is true at the age of 80 in the College of Cardinals and for posts in the Roman Curia, up to the whims of the Holy Father. We have all met extraordinarily vibrant 80-year-olds, extraordinarily vibrant 75-year-olds who are more than capable of continuing the work they do and put the rest of us who are much younger than them to shame in how active they are. And the Church, in her wisdom, and through its canon law, allows the Pope to make that decision. But Paglia hit 80, and he was replaced by unequivocally a better choice to run that office. So it's a good thing. I am dedicated here to telling you the truth, what I think is true. So if I did not like at all that ecumenical dialogue thing, when you read what the church has always said on that stuff, you can't square the two. I'm not going to lie to you about it. I respect you enough not to lie. And I don't want to have to go to confession for anything I ever do on this channel. The other thing, but that John Paul II issue is huge too. It is through that office, through that dicastery, that so many good things happen, or bad things in the last few years. So it's unequivocally good to put somebody there who is better, unequivocally. We're entering an era of the good and the bad, and we have to keep cool heads when we report on this stuff. I'm curious what you think about all this. Bishop Sanborn is 75. Yeah, he's also Sedevacantist bishop, so he's going to stay on. The Sedevacantist bishops stay, and just like the SSPX bishops stay on it forever. I'm just curious what you think about all this. Let me know in the comments. Beware. Yeah, Dean says, yeah, I think he identified the other one. He says, there is an AI channel called Faith and Tradition that basically takes Dr. Stine's podcast and reposts it with a British AI voice. Basically, yes. And if I find out that that's what they're doing, I will use my AI, I will use my YouTube contact to shut them down, because that's theft. And if you're watching this and you're behind that, I suggest you change course immediately, if that's what you're doing. But I'm curious what you have to say about this in the comments. Danny Keller says, never believe sensationalized AI videos. That's absolutely true. And KW uses his free super chat. Good morning, brothers and sisters. And thank you, Patricia Laley, for becoming a member. It is appreciated. But I'm curious what you have to say about this. So let me know in the comments. This live stream was all over the place today, but I think it was needed to talk about what they were doing with AI, because it's unequivocally a sin to just make up stories like that, to put words in the mouth of the Holy Father. This is not an interpretation issue. You are literally claiming he said something he did not say. It is bearing false witness, and some have said it's even impersonating a priest when you do that. Phil Gonzalez with a $20 super chat. Thank you, sir. Says, Anthony is AI. If I am, then whatever AI I am whoever paid for it needs to get their money back. Not the most smooth talker. All right, folks. Thanks very much for tuning in today. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.